A24's Civil War isn't even remotely interested in its own premise. The movie's been out for about a month with polarizing reviews, and no one's shocked. It's a movie about an American Civil War that's coming out now. Director Alex Garland has worked within the sci-fi genre for quite some time, with most of his stories reflecting on societal terrors such as the fear of AI, self-destructive tendencies in people, and men. And now with Civil War, he seeks to hone in on this concept while also creating the pastiche of a war movie set in the US. We follow a group of journalists as they make their way through a war-torn, divided America to get a quote from a dictatorial president. As they go on this journey, our characters learn more about the state of their country as well as their place in it. We're presented with 4 core characters. Kirsten Dunst, who is our world-weary, emotionally taxed main character. We have Stephen McKinley Henderson, Dead Man Limping, an older journalist who seemingly can't pass up one last hurrah to see the president in DC. Kaylee Spaney, aka our newbie, a younger wannabe journalist who idolizes Kirsten Dunst, and the adrenaline junkie, Wagner Moura, Kirsten Dunst's co-worker who can't pass up the opportunity to run into a war zone. My biggest confusion regarding the titular Civil War and its accompanying conflicts is that they aren't really essential to the movie's plot. The story could have taken place anywhere, in any country, during any armed conflict, and its characters, themes, and major story beats would only need minor changes to fit those alterations. It's been called by many outlets as a love letter to journalists, and while the film features members of the press courageously attempting to do their jobs in hostile environments, it doesn't do a lot to paint them as particularly competent or their work as necessary. The movie instead seems more interested in painting war journalism as an exercise in futility. The film purposely moves away from the specifics of the central Civil War conflict, with only vague mentions to concepts like an Antifa massacre or the current president serving 3 terms as possibilities as to how this all started. Of the main characters, Kirsten Dunst is the only personality who outright acknowledges the futility of her work. The movie never even engages with their cynicism, and instead only justifies her staying in this role by calling the job a rush, without rooting her ongoing passion in any political or moral belief. Stephen McKinley Henderson, aka our Dead Man Limping, voluntarily signs up for a road trip without even trying to explain his reasoning. A generous reading would tie this motivation into the rush that Kirsten Dunst and Kaylee Spaney are addicted to, but that's barely explored in the movie. There isn't a shortage of journalists on the front line, so why does the disabled senior citizen just have to get out there? From the second he's introduced, the film telegraphs his demise. His death feels less tragic and far more obvious. Our adrenaline junkie / mustache man also loves that rush, but when he's close to the action, he shares that devil-may-care attitude when he learns that, surprise surprise, war isn't particularly fun when the people he cares about die. By the end of the movie, when our main characters have reached the White House, Kaylee Spaney's recklessness forces Kirsten Dunst out of cover during a gunfight, resulting in her death. This beat is meant to pay off an earlier conversation where both characters ask each other if they would capture their final moments if they were to die. You could argue that this is the culmination of a tragic arc for Kaylee Spaney and that it represents a final loss of innocence, but we never really sit in that moment long enough for it to really mean anything. What lessons can we or society at large learn from these characters? War is bad? Don't jump out of cover during a gunfight? And then, at the end of it all, the president finally gives his quote, the last words. What are they? Please don't let them kill me. That's exactly what you would expect for anyone to say prior to an execution. And when they get the quote, the entire quest feels useless, especially when you consider the lives they just lost to hear this guy just beg for his life. There's no on-screen evidence of our adrenaline junkie / mustache man recording his exchange with the president, aside from the final picture standing by the execution. He literally just writes the president's words down. And all these points essentially boil down to 2 big problems with Civil War. Its decision to not focus on the causes of domestic division in America only works on a surface level. However, it makes the premise itself feel less original. There are waves of movies about America falling into moral decay. What changes outside of the action set pieces which evoke 9/11 and January 6th? What does this say to us if we don't really get any concrete reason as to why this is all happening? And also, by taking away that specificity, it ultimately leaves our characters without concrete motivation or any strict belief systems that might even give us any insight into who they are as people, and more importantly, as journalists. When it's all said and done, it doesn't matter if you believe A24 Civil War is an exploration of domestic division in America, or if you think it's a love letter to journalism. Either way, you're going to be kind of disappointed.